Hello, everyone. We're so excited you could join us today. We're going to get started in just a moment. In the meantime, we'd love to hear where you're joining us from. I am in North Carolina today. It's beautiful and sunny. Diana, who is going to be our presenter today, is located in Vermont, and she's going to join us in just a moment. I see some people from Canada in the chat, so we'd love to know where you're joining us from and get things going. So, with that said, my name is Courtney Pollock, and I'm so excited that you've been able to join our webinar today, The 5 Hidden Challenges of ERP Implementations, presented to you by SWK Technologies. So before we dive into today's presentation, I want to go over just a few housekeeping items. So this session is being recorded, and you'll receive the recording tomorrow afternoon, whether you're able to attend live or whether you were not able to join the live session today. Our recorded webinars are also always available on our YouTube channel. There's tons of great content there, short videos, how-tos, anything you can imagine. So it's another great resource to check out. Everyone has also been placed on mute to keep the background noise to a minimum. However, I highly encourage you to participate in the chat. Hit that Q&A box on the right side of your screen. You can put questions in throughout the entire presentation. We'd love to hear your questions. And then we're going to answer all those questions at the very end. So questions, chat, we'll also run some polls throughout. So we'd love to hear your poll responses. Sometimes we might just ask you to sound off in the chat instead of running an actual poll. So check that right-hand side. There's going to be a lot of things going on throughout the presentation. And with that said, we're so excited that you're able to join us today. SWK is always here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and really help you fulfill your vision of a smarter and easier way to run your business. We're also active on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Twitter/X, YouTube, all those social media places where we share content like this. So check us out, give us a follow there. And then without further ado, I want to bring Diana Kyser on screen so that we can really dive into today's topic. So hi there, Diana. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Diana Kyser, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at SWK. I've been with the company for about 9 years, and in that time, I've seen a lot of ERP implementations in our Sage 100 Intact and Acumatica practices. Today, we're going to go through some of the lessons that we've learned implementing, hundreds, thousands of ERP systems. We'll cover the emotional journey that you may go through when you implement a new ERP system. I'm going to use the analogy of building a house to help illustrate some of the important points, such as laying a good foundation and being sure you're ready to move into the house when it's finished. We're going to talk about why having a good change management process is one of the keys to success, and as well as assessing your company's readiness for change and engaging the right people on the journey. And then lastly, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So how many of you have been through an ERP implementation?
You know, Diana, that's a great question. No, go ahead. No, so I just wanted to let everyone know we're putting that poll up. So if you check in the right-hand side, there is a poll. We'd love to hear, whether you've been through an ERP implementation or not. And I'm going to throw that on the screen so that Diana can see those results.
Okay. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to be emphasizing kind of the scale and impact of the change that you're going to experience with your changing out your ERP system. I liken it to going to the hospital and getting every organ in your body transplanted at the same time. Your ERP system is the lifeblood of your company. Everything you do, from recording customer transactions, paying employees, managing the manufacturing process, everything runs through that system. So replacing it is going to impact everything. It's not for the faint of heart, but having a well-managed change process can improve your chances of success. So I mentioned I was going to use the analogy of building a house to illustrate the important points. Last year, I built a house, and I worked with a wonderful architect to create an architectural plan and a builder to build the house. I had never built a house before, and they guided me through every step of the way because that's what they do for a living. I had to tell them exactly what I wanted in my house, where the light switches should be, and what kind of countertops and appliances I wanted in my kitchen. Similarly, SWK knows how to implement ERP systems, but you know your business. You will have to tell your implementation partner every little detail about what you want in your system. Together, you'll work with the implementation partner to make the ERP system work for you. The more clearly you can articulate your business processes, the better your implementation will be. One of the phases that of our implementation process is called a detailed design document. And like the architectural plan that I had for my house, you will need to pay close attention to the design document because it will become the blueprint for your system. An example from my own experience is what happened with my duct work. So I wanted my basement and first floor to be on the same zone and the second floor to be in a separate zone. But I misread the blueprints and I didn't see that the second floor and the basement were connected to one zone and the first floor was on a separate one. So by the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. They had already done all of the duct work and they could rip it out and make it the way I wanted, but it would have cost a fortune. So I left it as is. Similarly, you may get down the road in your implementation and realize that something doesn't work the way you thought it did. And it may be a very simple change, or it may be very involved and costly. So it's super important for you to be actively engaged in that design process to fully understand the documents that you're signing off on before your implementation partner starts building. Each ERP system is different, so the more educated that you can become on the system, the smoother the process will be for you. You will have to live in the house and change the water filters, so you really need to know how to do that. This is what we call the ERP implementation emotional roadmap. It's basically a map of the emotions that you'll go through during your implementation before you get to go live. The beginning of the process starts out with selecting an ERP system. You're so excited. You're finally going to replace that old system. You selected the best new technology and the best partner, and you're filled with hopes and dreams of the future. You meet with your implementation team, you meet your project team at the kickoff call, and you experience a sense of euphoria and excitement. You just can't wait for this new system to be done. Then you attend the design sessions. You might start to realize how much work this is going to be. You might experience confusion. Wait, how does it process POs? And anxiety over having to know every single process in your entire company. As the team begins the configuration, you might be frustrated because this is taking way more time than you expected. You might even feel a little bit of desperation as you move into conference room pilot, where we do a dry run of all the functionality of the software, and even more desperation when you realize you've got to train your entire team on this new system. At this point, you're in what we call the trough of disillusionment, when you're at the very lowest and wonder, why in the world did I want to replace this system in the first place? But then as you become more and more comfortable with the new system and start to see the possibilities, you go live and you start to be able to see this working. It's a really hard process, and this kind of emotional roller coaster is very normal. Those of you who have implemented an ERP system before might be able to see yourselves in this emotional process. So the key to a successful implementation is having a good foundation. All of the upfront planning and discovery will pay off in the end. This is a case where you want to measure twice and cut once. One of the most important ways you can set yourself up for success is to allocate the right resources. We know you have a full-time job and you'll have a part-time job of implementing the ERP system, but it's important to realize that for every 1 hour of work in your SOW, the statement of work, you should expect to put in 2 to 3 hours. Ideally, you need to assign a full-time resource to manage the implementation within your company. And the ERP system will work for you, but it may require some process changes. Every business is slightly different, and our ERP systems are geared to be flexible enough to handle most scenarios, but in some cases, they require process changes, or customizations. Building on that foundation are some elements that you can start now to improve your chances of success. You will need to have defined workflows. A workflow is really how you process, for example, a vendor invoice from the time it's received in the mail to the time the check is cut out and sent out. The system doesn't matter. It's just a description of how you do each process. Those workflows then can become your test scripts, and you can work through those flows in the new system and test the new functionality. The other thing that's super important is data. I'm sure you've heard the term garbage in, garbage out. If you have data in your old system that's really bad, when you bring it into your new system, it's going to be equally as bad. So it's important to allocate time to clean up that data before it gets into the new system. And the other thing is most implementation partners do data import, not data migration. So you will need to have someone who can get your data out of your old system and into the templates for the new system. So how many of you have a formal change management process in place at your company? Let us know in the chat, and Courtney can keep us posted. Having a formal change management process can greatly improve your chances of success. No one likes change, so having a formalized process will help to minimize the resistance your project is sure to get and will maximize the system adoption through your organization and ultimately improve employee engagement and morale. According to Gartner Group, some 60% of ERP systems fail to meet expectations. This failure is caused by a number of things, most of which you can mitigate by having the right change management program within your company. Some of the failures are the failure to assign the appropriate resources, trying to make a new system do exactly what and how your old system did it, holding on to outdated processes, and the failure to involve the right people. Next, we'll go through the major tenets of change management. And again, most of these are taken from our years of implementing ERP systems. So the key elements to change management, number one is leadership commitment. So how committed are your leaders? Having leaders that are supportive and committed to the project is super important. They also need to be aware of the resource requirements that will be required for the project and, if necessary, move resources around so that you have time for your implementation. Number two, do you have defined objectives for why you're changing systems? As I mentioned before, this is a really hard process. So knowing what you hope to achieve or gain from it is very important, and communicating that to your team. Try to tie the system objectives to your overall business goals. Number three, how are you planning to communicate to your people about the system implementation and goals? Do you have an internal Teams channel or a Slack channel where you can post updates and progress on how the implementation is going? And lastly, who are you going to involve in the implementation? We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but how will the employees be involved in the process? Dale Carnegie once said, people support a world they help create. So involving them early will help increase accountability and ownership and will make your project more successful in the long run. How ready is your organization for change? Some organizational cultures welcome change, and others put up extreme resistance. It will help for you to assess your company's readiness for adopting the new system and whatever new processes they may need as a result. We have found a few areas that make companies less ready for change. You want to look at how long your company has been using your existing system. Is it highly customized? How tenured are your employees? How technical are your employees? What system are they using today? We had a customer who had people on the shop floor who had never used a computer. They entered their work into an old green screen terminal, and they never even used a mouse. So when we rolled out the ERP system, these folks needed PC training and acclimation before they would ever be able to use a modern system like Intact or Acumatica. You may want to conduct surveys or focus groups to help you assess how ready your company is for change. One company I worked for did a change management seminar using the book Who Moved My Cheese, which was very helpful in understanding who in the organization would be a change champion and who would be the strongest resistors. By identifying the change champions, you can spread the responsibility for adopting the system across the organization. So I mentioned we would talk about stakeholders, but what is a stakeholder? Go through who will be using the system. This isn't just finance or operations. Look at every function that will be using the system: manufacturing, the shop floor, inventory management, project managers, salespeople, etc. Often companies choose the CFO or controller to be the point person for the implementation of an ERP system, and then they'll involve the department head of various departments. The problem with this is that not all department heads or leaders know how the employees actually use the system. We had a customer where this ended up in a disaster. We got all the way through the implementation into UAT, where the users actually use the system, and the users sort of said, we're not going to use this system because it has 25 steps for something that they used to be able to do in one step. They didn't care that the old system was simple because it didn't track anything. They only cared about their part of the system, and the leadership had never involved them in the process and didn't know what they did. So involving them in the beginning would have uncovered this problem and allowed for more time to customize the system to reduce the clicks. You may want to have an internal steering committee made up of different levels of employees in each department. This team might meet regularly to walk through processes and advise how they'll use the new system. And as I mentioned, there may be process changes that will be required. In the previous example, the company never had a good inventory tracking system, and so that's why they were implementing a new tool. To get this additional data into the system required extra steps, and it required them to keep track of all kinds of items, like items and part numbers. And that was really what caused the friction with the workforce, because it's so many extra steps. But if your team can understand why the processes are changed and what value they're getting from tracking that inventory, they'll be much more likely to not resist the process. We've also seen projects where some stakeholders have been working in the current system for 30 years. They don't want to change. They don't want to change anything. Identifying these people upfront and making sure they're on board so that they don't tank the project is imperative. All of our ERP systems, Acumatica and Intact, are very flexible and extensible and powerful. So you don't want to let people who don't want to change cause your implementation to fail. So I hope some of these tips will help you on your implementation journey. Formalizing a change management process and involving and assigning the right resources will help your project be more successful. Now, Courtney will come back on and we'll take your questions.
Thank you, Diana. So with that said, we are going to open it up for Q&A now. I know I've got a couple questions. I've seen some coming in from our live stream. And then also we did just launch a poll. So we're curious to know, as Diana said, where are you in that ERP implementation journey? So there's a few options there. So check out the poll tab. We'd love to get your response there. And then go ahead and get those questions in the Q&A section or the chat. Anywhere that works, and we will dive into all the questions. And I'm also going to bring Anna Snook from our SWK team on camera as well to help us answer some of those questions in just a moment. So let me bring Anna on.
Hi, Anna.
Hi there, Anna.
Hello, everybody.
Perfect. So the first question I have for you guys is this person said, we're a small company and we're interested in moving to Acumatica, but we only have 3 full-time employees available to help with the implementation. Is that enough?
So I think the big question, as I mentioned, is having the time to devote to the implementation. So if there's only 3 people on the team, it's going to be a lot of work for all 3 of you or one of them. So it's really a matter of making sure that if it's your company, that you can assign your work to others as you work on the implementation. But I can't I can't emphasize enough how much work it is. I think people don't. I don't think they realize that. Worth it, but a lot of work.
Awesome. Another question is kind of a similar nature. This person said, I'm on QuickBooks. Will this be an easy transition for us?
Um,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'll jump in on that one. You would think it might be, but with QuickBooks, you're able to do a lot of things, and Acumatica is a gap compliant system, and a lot of ERPs, in fact, that we sell are gap compliant. And QuickBooks doesn't actually keep all of the gap compliancies. So you might find that in an ERP system that you're moving to, you may have to do different processes for reasons around that, which you'll have to try to understand, which means you may have to change processes. You may have to add GL codes that you don't currently have. You may have to do things just a little bit differently. So I think being open to change because you are coming to a new system is going to be really big for you there. The other big thing about QuickBooks would be thinking about your data. Like Diana said, data is big for an ERP implementation. So you're going to have to extract that data. You're going to have to kind of parse it out a little bit and also clean it up. So kind of think about that as you're going through thinking about your ERP system that you're going to be implementing, because you're going to want to start thinking about data about the same time as you're thinking about going into purchasing a new ERP system.
Wow, that is a great point, Anna. So I'm so glad that someone asked that question. Um, it looks like we have a bit of a quieter audience today, or Diana was just too thorough with her presentation. I don't know which one it is, but either way, it looks like, unless I see a last minute submission here, I'm looking at all my screens. I think we are going to go ahead and wrap a bit early. But if you do think of a question after the fact, don't hesitate to reach out. You can always reach us at info@swktech.com. We'd be happy to talk to you about your particular situation and share any of that expertise or information that we can. Anna, Diana, any last words before we wrap?
Nope. Thank you,
Perfect.
Courtney. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thank you all. Like I said, here's our contact information. We appreciate you joining us today. We hope you found it informative and have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Anna, for sharing some information with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.